How to write the sales copy for your Steam page in 5 easy steps. So if you're a small indie game dev and you have no idea what to write on your Steam page so that it, motivates customers to wishlist your game or to join your Discord or to buy your game, then here's a simple 5-step formula. So here are the Steam page basics. And after writing online sales pages and ads for over 20 years, I learned there's 5 fundamental steps. So step 1 is get a customer's attention with the headline. So basically this is your short description. Step 2 is hold their interest by showing your game's advantage. Step 3 is show them an advantage in action. Step 4 is personalize your store page. And step 5 is ask for action. So pause right now, go grab a pen or paper or open a Google document. I want you to follow along and take notes. And at the end of this video, you'll have your Steam page marketing copy all done. Okay, if you're ready, let's go through each one and start building the sales copy on your Steam page so that it helps, increase wish lists or Discord followers or game sales. So here's step 1, get attention with a headline or basically your short description. So let's work on that. Let's work on your short description first. So this is basically your elevator pitch, and its only job is to stop the player from scrolling Steam and then grab their attention, and that's it. But the biggest mistake I see with most short descriptions is that people try to add flair and drama when describing their game. And that's because, this kind of flair and drama kind of sounds persuasive. So let me show you what I mean. I took an actual game's short description and added my own flair and, own drama to make it sound, exciting and persuasive. So here's how it goes. Alone, you are on a whimsical odyssey through shifting depths of surreal encounters. By day, you drift through enigmatic currents. By night, you surrender to a dreamlike ritual of taste and tradition. Follow our hero and his eccentric companions as they unravel echoes of a secret, long forgotten world. So when you read that short description, can you tell me what game this is? Can you tell me what genre it is? Or can you even, tell me what you can do in this game? No, not at all, right? So now let me read you the actual description. A casual single-player adventure RPG featuring deep-sea exploration and fishing during the day and sushi restaurant management at night. Join Dave and his quirky friends as they seek to uncover the secrets of the mysterious blue hole. So even if you don't know this game in particular, you know what the game is. So basically a casual single-player adventure RPG, and you know what you get to do. You fish during the day and you run a restaurant at night. So, and by the way, this short description comes from Dave the Diver, and you probably know that. So the secret in attention-grabbing short descriptions isn't flair, isn't drama, or trying to add excitement. And yeah, if you're, a studio of 50 people and you have a big publisher, funding you, and you're making an epic AAA game, then yes, this drama, this mystery, and curiosity building tone works. But if you're a small indie game studio working hard on making a quality game, with a limited budget and you have no buzz, then the secret to grabbing attention is simplicity and specificity. Because by using concrete words and tangible settings and, themes, it makes it easier for the potential customer to imagine themselves playing the game. So for example, it's hard for a player to imagine, this phrase, alone, you are on a whimsical odyssey through shifting depths and surreal encounters. But when a player reads a casual single-player adventure RPG featuring deep-sea exploration and fishing, the player knows instantly what the game is and who's it for. And yeah, I know it might sound dry or boring, but when a player, reads concrete words like this, fishing during the day and running a sushi restaurant at night, there is no ambiguity. And in 3 seconds and in 5 seconds, the player can imagine themselves doing that. Same with the setting. In Dave the Diver, you seek to uncover secrets of the mysterious blue hole. And, this phrase, blue hole is concrete, it's simple, and it's tangible, right? A player can imagine a blue hole in a sea. But if a player reads unravel echoes of a secret, long forgotten world, that can mean anything. It's, hard for a player to imagine, that phrase because long forgotten worlds can apply to a lot of games and it basically means nothing. So the secret to attention grabbing, short descriptions is specificity. By being specific, it forces you to come up with an elevator pitch that, people can understand clearly in less than 5 seconds. And it makes it easy for the player to imagine themselves, playing your game. So how do you do this exactly? How do you write a short description so that it's attention grabbing and it makes it easier for the player to imagine themselves, doing all those things in your game? Well, get out your pen or get your keyboard ready and write these 4 questions down. So the first question is, what subgenre is your game? 2 is, what action does the player get to do? 3 is, what's your game's setting or theme? And 4 is, what's one unique appeal your game does that others don't in your genre? So the idea here is to write a lot and put down as many ideas as you can, because right now you're just, getting all the raw materials for your short description. Because once you have all your ideas down, basically your raw materials, then it'll be easier to, write your short description. And to help you out, I like to use this formula. So basically it goes like this. First, your game's subgenre. 2, action your player gets to do. 3, your setting or your theme. And then 4, unique appeal. So for example, here's one I made up. Motocross Mayhem is a 2D rhythm-based action platformer where you race your dirt bike across 30 different obstacle courses, each one getting harder and harder. Think Geometry Dash, but instead you're a dude on a dirt bike. So let me break this down, and that way you'll make it more sense when you actually follow this formula. So first, what's the game genre? It's a 2D rhythm-based action platformer. Okay, next, player actions, they race a dirt bike. And the setting is basically a dirt track with 30 different obstacle courses. Unique appeal, people who love Geometry Dash, but instead of controlling a block, it's a character on a dirt bike. Again, the idea is to make it easy for the player to imagine themselves playing this game. Okay, once your short description has grabbed your potential customer's attention, let's now work on holding that attention. So that's what we'll do in part 2, and that is hold their interest by describing your game's advantages. So now the job of your long description, basically the area below, about this game, is to hold a player's interest, because the more they learn about your game and see its appeal, the more motivated they'll be to take, an action like wishlist your game or buy your game. And this is why most game devs want YouTubers to talk about their game, because YouTubers are great at holding an audience's attention. And the more, time that audience spends learning about your game, the higher the chances of them going to your Steam page and, buying it or wishlisting it, right? It's the same idea here. The longer a potential customer spends learning about your game, the more they will convince themselves that they need to play and buy your game. But how do you hold their attention? Well, customers are always asking themselves, what will this game do for me? If you can answer that, then you can hold their attention. But what most game devs do in their long description is they simply list a bunch of, features, but simply listing a bunch of features isn't going to hold that much attention, because it's more about you and less about them. Again, you're not answering that one question, what will your game do for me? So to actually sell your features so that it excites, a player to want and play your game, you need to show them what your game will do for them. So let me show you exactly how to do that. So the secret is very simple. By simply changing the focus away from you and putting the focus on the player will right away see what this game can do for me. So let me show you an example. Say I have a feature in a game and you get to dig to, find resources. And say I describe this dig feature like so. Dig tunnels underground to search for resources and materials and uncover powerful hidden artifacts. And this is where most game devs stop when describing their features. But the gamer is still asking, yeah, so what? What does this have to do with me? So now let's look at a good example. So in the game Dome Keeper, they have, the same, dig feature, but the way they describe it, they do so by putting the focus on the player. So here's the actual description. Drill tunnels beneath your dome in search of precious materials or to uncover powerful hidden artifacts. Watch the time. You need to get back to your dome and be ready when the next wave of attack comes. How deep will you get this time, and how much can you carry back? So notice how they added, watch the time, you need to get back, and so on, right? This extra part of the description. This subtle shift in tone is the secret. And you notice that they talk about you, and you have to watch the time, and you have to get back in time before, and the next wave comes. This is how you show a player an advantage. Because what most game devs do is, like I said, they stop just at describing what the feature does. But to really sell those features, you need to put the focus on the player. You got to make it easy for them to imagine themselves doing that action. So to help you do all of this, get your pen or your keyboard ready and answer these 3 simple questions. So again, first you got to pick a feature and then ask, how does the feature work? What will happen if the player performs the task successfully? And then what will happen if the player fails at the task? So for example, in my Motocross Mayhem game idea, one feature, basically is platforming. So how does this feature work? So simply, the game starts off automatically and you got to use the mouse to click to jump, spacebar to brake, and you got to avoid obstacles that come at you. So what will happen if the player performs the task successfully? So if they avoid all the obstacles all the way to, to the finish line, they go on to the next course, which is, more difficult than the last. So then what will happen if the player fails at the task? Well, if they hit an obstacle, they go right back to the very beginning and they have to do the course all over again. So answer those 3 questions and write down all the ideas that come to mind. write a lot. And again, this is your raw material you'll use to come up with a description for your feature. But what's most important here is to shift attention away from you and to put the focus on the player, because by asking yourself what will happen, if the player pulls off this task, or what will happen if they, fail at the task, you put the spotlight on the player, and then you make it easier for them to know what your game will do for them. And that's the secret in holding attention and interest. By simply changing your tone about less about you and more about them, that's the secret. But, telling a player what your game will do for them isn't enough to, motivate them. You still have to demonstrate that in action by showing them what your game will do for them. So basically telling and showing. So let's do that next. So step 3 is show them the advantage in action. So this is where now you use your screenshots and animated GIFs or movies to, show that advantage in action. So for example, in Dome Keeper, they have, 3 simple features: dig, defend, and develop. And with each feature, they have an animation showing how that feature works so that the player can easily see what's going on. And this might seem obvious, but I noticed a lot of small indie game devs on their Steam, pages, they don't do this, right? They don't add any animations tied to a feature. And if they do add any animations in their long descriptions, it's kind of random, right? A game dev will pick out an animation because they think it looks cool or it looks interesting, and then they'll plop it in the long description, and that's it. But to the player, the animation needs context. A cool or interesting animation or animated GIF means nothing to the player if they can't tie it back to, what will the game do for me? So it's important to organize your long description in these short little blocks. And the structure I use for my clients is first I have the animation, then the title, and then the description. Or sometimes I'll go title, description, or animation. And this is the same structure that Dome Keeper does. And the reason why it's important to lay out your long description this way is because it makes it easy for the player to read and scroll through, right? Because basically, big walls of text are intimidating and they're hard to read. And I see a lot of, game devs basically have, bullet points, but still it's just, there's no animation, there's no organization, it's just a bunch of features, and that's kind of hard to read. Okay, let's move on to step 4, and that is personalize your store page. So your potential customer wants to feel good about you and your game, because is your game fun? Is your game, worth the value? Do I trust your game isn't broken? Because the more comfortable someone feels about, buying from you, the more likely they will do so. So that's why I recommend that below your features, you have a section talking about you. And so what do you talk about? So basically, what inspired you to make this game? Talk about how you scrambled a small team to make this game, how long it took, your challenges and how you overcame those challenges, something kind of personal about you and how you made this game. But indie game devs don't do this because I think, they fear it makes them sound amateurish. But on the contrary, it makes your studio feel more personable. And, big business does this all the time. They spend a lot of time and money and effort trying to look personal. So for example, look at Xbox and Phil Spencer. And I have no doubt that, Phil Spencer is a decent person and he's relatable and he's genuine, but he's also a corporate exec who thinks about the bottom line, and he will cut jobs if he has to, right? So my point is being personal does help, sell your game. And that's because when you personalize your studio, you prevent turning your game, your studio into a commodity. Okay, let's move on to step number 5, and that is ask for action. Okay, let's say that you're coming over and then I tell you that there's bread on the counter and there's meat and cheese in the fridge. Go help yourself, make a sandwich, and then there's coffee in the pot. Go pour some coffee if you want. If I said that, then you probably tell me that you're not hungry, and because for sure you probably won't get up and start, making yourself a sandwich. But if you come over and then I have a plate of sandwiches or cookies or whatever, and then, coffee or some drinks already set up, and I tell you, go ahead, grab what you want, then you'll be more likely to, take some action. It's the same thing with your Steam page, right? Don't assume that a potential customer will take action. Just because you have a button on your Steam page, customers aren't going to go push it. So you have to make it very easy for them to push that button. How? Well, at the very bottom of your long description, you need to embed a Steam wishlist button or a buy button. Or if you're going for Discord followers, then embed a Discord invite code here too. And if you want more info on Steam widgets, I have the link below. So again, this is important because people are lazy, and a player might, get to the very bottom of your long description of your Steam page, and they might love your game, but they might not scroll back up, and to click that wishlist button. They might just bounce off and say, oh, I got to remember this game. I'll come back here later. So you got to remove any friction. And at the very bottom of your Steam page, make sure you embed that code. Okay, to make it easy for you, here's everything you just learned all in one spot. So step 1 is get a customer's attention with a headline or basically your short description. So the short description job is to grab a player's attention. So here's some highlights. Be specific and simple. Use concrete, tangible words. Make it easy for the player to imagine what your game is. And the formula goes like this: your game's subgenre, action your player gets to do, your setting or your theme, and then your unique appeal. Okay, step 2 is hold their interest by showing your game's advantage. So this is your long description now, and its job is to hold interest. So here's some highlights. The player is always asking, what will the game do for me? So instead of listing all of your features, also show an advantage. To do that, simply change the focus from you onto the player. So then here's the formula. How does the feature work? What will happen if the player performs the task successfully? What will happen if the player fails at the task? So use that formula to help you describe your feature so that way the player can see the advantage of that feature. Okay, so step 3 is show them the advantage in action. So for each feature, make sure you have an animated GIF or movie showing how that advantage works. Also, make it easy for your customers to scroll through your long description by using this formula. So basically is number 1, animation, 2, title, 3, description, or you can go title, description, animation. Step 4 is personalize your store page by having a little section talking about yourself, because people want to buy from people, not from nameless, faceless corporations. Okay, step 5 is ask for actions. So at the very bottom of your long description, embed a Steam widget, so basically your wish list button or your buy button, or embed a link to your Discord invite. And there it is, my friend. This is how you write a sales page for your Steam page so that it increases your wish list and gets more Discord followers and gets you some game sales. And if you'd like to hire me to help you grow your wish list and optimize your Steam page, then click the link below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Again, my name is Dariusz. Good luck with game dev. Good luck with finding players. And I hope that you got some good ideas here to help you, make a Steam page that, finds players. Later.